Antarctica is the coldest place on Earth, the driest, the most hostile to life of any landmass this planet has produced. 98% of it buried under ice that in some places reaches 4.5 kilometers thick. No trees, no soil visible to the surface, no liquid water for most of its area for most of the year. The end of the world, in every direction. The fossil record disagrees with that description entirely. Pressed into the rock beneath the ice, in formations that researchers have spent decades carefully extracting from some of the most hostile fieldwork conditions on this planet, is the record of a different Antarctica. An Antarctica with trees, with soil dense enough to support root systems reaching several meters deep, with rivers, with warmth, with animals, not small animals surviving at the margins. Large animals, predatory animals, animals that required a food chain of sufficient complexity and productivity to support apex predators at the southern end of the Earth. How does the coldest place on the planet become a jungle? Not a mild one, not a cool, temperate forest that stretched toward the pole and thinned as it approached. A dense, warm, biologically productive ecosystem sitting at or near the geographic South Pole. A latitude where today, nothing larger than a microorganism can complete a life cycle without dying. The answer is not simple, and it is not confined to Antarctica. It is a story about the entire planet operating under a different set of atmospheric rules. Rules that produced a world so unlike the one we know that the word Earth barely covers both versions. In this video, you will learn what Antarctica actually was during the periods the fossil record captures most clearly. Not what it might have been, what the physical evidence, fossil wood, fossil pollen, fossil bone, geochemical data from ancient sediment confirms it was. You will learn what lived there, what the ecosystem looked like at its most productive and most dangerous, and what the existence of a jungle at the South Pole tells us about the conditions that make extreme biology possible on this planet and potentially elsewhere. Because this is not simply a story about a place that changed. It is a story about a planet that was running different parameters entirely. And the life it produced under those parameters was operating by rules the modern world has no direct equivalent for. If this is why you're here, subscribe. Because what follows is one of the most complete revisions of what this planet has been that the fossil record has given us. The geological record of Antarctica is one of the most difficult to access of any major landmass on Earth. The ice sheet that covers most of the continent is not simply a layer of frozen water sitting on top of accessible rock. It is a dynamic, compressing, moving system that has been overriding the surface record for millions of years, getting to the geology beneath it, and recovering material in sufficient condition to make meaningful scientific claims requires fieldwork in conditions that test the limits of what human logistics can support. And yet the record that researchers have extracted from the exposed rock of the Transantarctic Mountains, from the Antarctic Peninsula, from drill cores pulled from sediment beneath the ice sheet itself, is detailed enough to describe not just the presence of ancient forests, but their structure, their species composition, their seasonal behavior, and the ecosystem that surrounded them. Not long ago, this channel examined what happens when the planet's oceans run warmer than anything the modern world sustains, and the biology that results operates at a scale that current life cannot approach. What the Antarctic record shows operates by the same ancient principle. When the atmospheric conditions shift far enough from what we consider normal, when the parameters that define temperature, carbon concentration, and sea level move outside the range of recent geological history, the biology that fills the available space becomes something the present world has no living reference for. Antarctica is the most dramatic single example of that principle in the terrestrial fossil record. A continent now synonymous with lifelessness that was, at multiple points in its geological history, one of the most biologically productive landmasses on the planet. The periods most completely documented in the Antarctic fossil record span a wide range of geological time. from the Triassic and Jurassic periods, when Antarctica was part of the supercontinent Gondwana, through the Cretaceous, and into the Eocene epoch, approximately 34 to 56 million years ago, which represents the most recent, and in some ways most instructive chapter of Antarctic warmth. It is the Eocene that the most detailed and most biologically striking fossil evidence comes from. And it is the Eocene that forms the core of what follows. To understand why Antarctica was a jungle, you need to understand what the entire planet was doing during the periods in question. Because the Antarctic ecosystem was not an isolated anomaly, a warm patch at the South Pole, surrounded by a cold world. It was the southern expression of a planet operating under conditions fundamentally different from today. The Eocene epoch, particularly the early to middle Eocene, approximately 40 to 50 million years ago, is one of the warmest periods in the recent geological record. Atmospheric carbon dioxide concentrations during the early Eocene are estimated at roughly 3 to 4 times current levels by many reconstructions, though the precise figures remain a subject of active research and vary across different methodological approaches. Global mean surface temperatures are estimated to have been approximately 10 to 15 degrees Celsius warmer than today, with polar regions showing the most dramatic differences. The Arctic had forests. The Antarctic had forests. Sea surface temperatures in the tropics were significantly higher than today. There were no permanent polar ice sheets. Sea levels were higher. The geography of coastlines, ocean circulation patterns, and atmospheric heat distribution were all operating differently from the system the modern world runs on. This is the greenhouse Earth, not a marginal warming, not a 1 or 2 degree shift from a baseline similar to today. A fundamentally different planetary state, one that the Earth has occupied for significant portions of its history and that the geological record captures with increasing precision. The mechanism is understood in broad terms. High atmospheric carbon dioxide traps more outgoing radiation. Less heat escapes to space. The planet warms. That warmth is not evenly distributed. Polar regions warm proportionally more than the tropics in most model reconstructions, a phenomenon called polar amplification. In the Eocene, polar amplification produced temperatures at the South Pole that supported not just plant life, but dense, layered, ecologically complex forest, at a latitude where permanent ice now sits year-round. The fossil evidence for this is not inferred from geochemical proxies alone. It is physical. Fossil wood recovered from the Transantarctic Mountains and from sites on the Antarctic Peninsula shows tree ring patterns, annual growth rings, and species adapted to the extreme photoperiod of high-latitude existence. In Antarctica, even during warm periods, the sun still disappeared for months at a time in winter. The trees that lived there did not simply require warmth. They required a biological architecture suited to growing rapidly during months of continuous summer light and surviving months of winter darkness. The fossil which shows exactly that: wide rings from summer growth seasons, compressed rings, or dormancy boundaries from the dark winters. Not a temperate forest transplanted south. A specifically adapted high-latitude forest built for conditions that no forest on Earth currently experiences. The Antarctic fossil forest was not a monoculture of cold-hardy conifers clinging to survival at the margins. The record is more complex than that, and considerably more biologically rich. Fossil pollen, fossil leaves, fossil wood, and in some cases fossil soil structures recovered from Eocene Antarctic deposits describe a layered forest ecosystem with multiple canopy levels, understory vegetation, and the kind of structural diversity associated with productive, stable forest environments. Palm-like plants in some reconstructions of the warmer periods. Tree ferns, Araucarian conifers, related to the modern monkey puzzle tree, forming significant portions of the canopy in some analyzed deposits. Flowering plants, whose fossil pollen appears in Antarctic sediments from this period in meaningful diversity. The mean annual temperature reconstructions for Antarctic forest sites during peak Eocene warmth suggest temperatures that in some estimates approached or exceeded 10 degrees Celsius. cold by tropical standards, warm enough to support diverse forest cover at latitudes where the modern world supports only ice. Some analyses of fossil flora from sites on the Antarctic Peninsula suggest occasional warm season temperatures potentially reaching into the low 20s Celsius. Not subtropical, but well within the range that supports productive temperate rainforest. This was not a marginal ecosystem. It was a functional, productive, layered forest at the bottom of the world. And functional forests support animals. The animal fossil record from Antarctic Eocene deposits is less complete than the botanical record. The conditions for vertebrate preservation are less consistently favorable, and the exposure of Eocene fossil-bearing rock in Antarctica is limited by the ice sheet. But what has been recovered is enough to describe the broad outlines of an Antarctic fauna that surprises in both its diversity and its ecological character. Fossil mammals have been recovered from Eocene Antarctic deposits, including marsupials and early ungulate relatives, confirming that Antarctica, still connected to South America by a land bridge during this period, was part of a broader southern continent faunal exchange. Ancient penguins, significantly larger than any living penguin species, are confirmed from Antarctic Eocene deposits. Some estimates place certain Eocene penguin species at heights approaching 1.5 meters, substantially larger than the modern emperor penguin, the largest living species. An ecosystem with giant penguins along its coastlines, diverse mammals in its forests, and the structural complexity to support multiple trophic levels is not a marginal system. It is a functioning, competitive, ecologically layered world. We documented something comparable in a previous episode. What happens when a specific set of atmospheric conditions persists long enough to push biology towards sizes and designs that the present world does not produce? The pattern repeats across different epochs for a reason. When the parameters shift far enough, the biology fills the available space to its new limits. Antarctica, in the Eocene, was one of the most complete expressions of that principle in the terrestrial record. The Antarctic jungle did not end suddenly. It did not end in a single catastrophic event. No impact, no supervolcano, no mass extinction confined to one latitude. It ended through a geological process so gradual that it does not register on any human timescale, and so consequential that its effects define the modern world more completely than almost any other single event in the last 50 million years. The opening of the Drake Passage. The Drake Passage, the body of water between the southern tip of South America and the Antarctic Peninsula, did not exist during the early Eocene. South America and Antarctica were still connected or separated by a shallow, restricted seaway that did not permit significant ocean circulation. As tectonic movement continued, South America moving north, Antarctica remaining at the pole, the gap between them widened. And as it widened past a critical threshold, a new ocean current became possible, the Antarctic Circumpolar Current, the largest ocean current on Earth by volume, circling Antarctica continuously, driven by the now unobstructed passage around the entire southern continent. The consequences of this current for Antarctic climate were direct and permanent. Before the circumpolar current existed, warm water from tropical and temperate ocean regions could reach Antarctic latitudes. Heat was distributed toward the pole by ocean circulation in a way that moderated polar temperatures. Once the circumpolar current established itself, creating a thermal barrier of cold, circulating water around the entire continent, the warm water that had previously reached Antarctica was blocked. The continent began to cool, not quickly, not in any way that would have been perceptible on a human lifespan, but measurably, irreversibly, in the direction of the Antarctica we know. The geological marker of this transition is one of the clearest boundaries in the Cenozoic record, the Eocene-Oligocene boundary. Approximately 34 million years ago, is marked in ocean sediment cores worldwide by a sharp shift in isotopic signatures consistent with the rapid growth of the Antarctic ice sheet. Rapid in geological terms. The transition from an ice-free Antarctica to a continent with permanent ice appears to have occurred over a geologically brief interval, possibly within 100,000 years or less by some analyses. following millions of years of gradual cooling. The forest did not thin slowly toward a gradual disappearance. The system crossed a threshold, and on the other side of that threshold was ice. The carbon dioxide record adds another layer to this transition. The cooling associated with the Eocene-Oligocene boundary correlates in the geological record with a significant decline in atmospheric carbon dioxide from the elevated Eocene levels toward values closer to the range of the subsequent Oligocene and later periods. Whether the carbon decline drove the cooling or the cooling drove further carbon changes, or both operated as a coupled system, remains a subject of active research. What is not in dispute is that the atmospheric chemistry changed, the ocean circulation changed, the temperature changed, and the Antarctic ecosystem that had existed for tens of millions of years was replaced at the transition by something that has no forest and no warmth and has not recovered either in 34 million years of subsequent geological time. Here is what the full record of Antarctic geology actually shows. A continent that is now the definition of lifelessness was, within the last 50 million years, recent by geological standards, a forested, productive, ecologically complex landmass at the South Pole. Not warmer by a degree or two, warmer by enough to support palm-like vegetation, diverse mammals, giant penguins, layered forest with multiple canopy levels, and a food chain of sufficient productivity to support apex predators. That world ended not because of a catastrophe in the conventional sense. It ended because two tectonic plates moved apart at the rate of fingernail growth until a gap between them became wide enough for water to flow through. And that water flow reorganized the thermal distribution of the entire Southern Ocean in a way that the Antarctic ecosystem could not survive. The largest jungle the polar regions ever supported was closed by a door that took millions of years to open and has not closed since. The lesson the Antarctic record carries is not primarily about Antarctica. It is about the relationship between atmospheric chemistry, ocean circulation, and the biological limits of what a place can be. The conditions that made Antarctica a jungle were not aberrations in the Earth's history. They were a state the planet has occupied for large portions of its existence. The conditions we consider normal, the polar ice caps, the cold, deep oceans, the carbon dioxide levels of the recent geological past, are themselves a specific state, one that has existed for roughly 34 million years, one that the planet drifted into through the same slow geological processes that built the Antarctic jungle and then dismantled it. The planet does not have a fixed condition it returns to when disturbed. It has a range of states, each internally stable, each capable of producing biology appropriate to its specific parameters, each separated from the others by thresholds that geological processes cross slowly and that, once crossed, do not reverse quickly. Antarctica is the record of one of those thresholds, a world that was warm and full of life, a geological door that opened, and 34 million years of ice on the other side. What we covered today is the threshold that the geological record confirms, the transition from a forested pole to the ice sheet that now defines it. There is another animal in that record, not from Antarctica, not from the Eocene, whose existence raises a similar set of questions about what happens when a specific environment produces a predator so precisely suited to its conditions that nothing like it appears in the record before or after. An animal built for a world that no longer exists. One the fossil record has been slowly and incompletely revealing for over a century, and that each new discovery makes stranger than the version before it. We go there next. If this changed how you see the planet you live on, leave a comment with what surprised you most. Was it the forest at the South Pole, palm-like vegetation, and giant penguins at a latitude where only ice exists today? Was it the mechanism that ended it, a tectonic gap, a new ocean current, a thermal barrier that closed the warm world permanently? Was it the broader implication that the conditions we consider normal are themselves just one state among several that this planet has occupied? That tells us which direction to go next. And if you have not yet subscribed, this is the moment. The next video goes into a predator that the fossil record has never fully finished describing. and we always follow the deepest evidence.